Hello there. Hope you're doing all right. I just noticed that with the live feed, there's always like a delay. I switched the camera on, so I'm just waiting 5 seconds before I speak. And so today I'm still on the seventh day of the Avignon Off Fringe Festival. I'm back in my apartment. I was actually out doing a little seminar with the guys of the Edinburgh Fringe. So as I told you before, the festival organizes lots of seminars and which may be interesting for arts industry professionals. And there's a whole series for companies wishing to tour abroad. So today was the Edinburgh Fringe, and then I'm gonna attend one about Taiwan in Armenia. I like to go there, and then so on and so forth. Sorry, just taking a sip because I just had lunch. And so during the conversation, something came up, which is very interesting, which is something I noticed here at Avignon as well. The fact that, well, there was a member of the audience listening to these two guys from the Edinburgh Fringe presenting the festival. And I think it was a woman. She asked how many French companies did attend last year. And it was 13 companies. And and then basically had this conversation. They were explaining how for French companies it is very rare to tour to actually push their shows abroad just because they're heavily subsidized from the state to stay in France in a way. And in France there is quite a huge market and so on. And I take it it's the same for German companies, Italian companies, and so on and so forth. Just to give an example, I mean I've been coming here to Avignon for 6 years now, and I think in the brochure of the shows you can actually see the shows divided by country, and I think Italy is always been 6 or 7, which is incredible. I mean, bear in mind we're speaking about two countries that are literally bordering next to each other and of about the same size. We're speaking about 60 million people, and the reason is the same. Basically, what happened is in all these European countries, theater is just heavily subsidized by the state, which creates a twofold problem. This first problem, I think it's freedom, because if you're going to present a project to actually develop a theater show, and you got to appease the bureaucrat, the state bureaucrat in front of you never present something which is that goes against the kind of mainstream way of thinking. Okay, let me give you an example. I was here in 2018 with a show titled Brexit, which I did write myself. You can find the script of the show on Amazon. That show toured a lot, like in the following 2 years. We were in the UK as well. We performed in London, Tara Theatre, Brighton Fringe. We toured a lot in France. We performed a lot with schools as well. I work a lot with schools, and I think it was the best written show ever about Brexit ever done. Just because I'm not British, that's the only reason. And I was seeing everything from a very detached point of view. Now that show was performed in 2018. We had a journalist coming all the way from Metro UK, from London, to actually review the show. We received great reviews, so we can check them out. I think they're still on the net. And then an American journalist came, and a French journalist came as well. And you can find the reviews on my website, tomcorradini.at, of that show. Now, it would have been impossible for any British company to produce a show in 2018 about Brexit. Utterly impossible. Asking for state funding or something like that. And in any case, it would have been very biased. It's just. And so there are things you cannot say if you want to be sponsored by the state, so to speak. Whereas rock music, I speak about the 60s, 70s, and so on, was really a form of rebellion, and even theater maybe in the 60s, 70s, especially during the clash between the communist and capitalist world, was a form of just rebel and tell new things and stuff like that. Nowadays, theater, from that point of view, as far as I'm concerned, is literally dead. Zero. I mean, to go against the mainstream ideology is just impossible. I mean, if I were writing a show about a kid who has whose parents, make him undergo a gender transformation operation. This guy just resents that and commits suicide or something like that. Zero chances everybody will go watch that. Maybe in the future I'll speak about some shows I want to write, but war in Ukraine. We're gonna do a show about what happened in Donbass in 2014. Forget about it. Just forget about it. See what's happening with Orban right now. He's trying to clinch a peace deal. Bang. All of a sudden. So I don't want to get into politics, but all of a sudden, like the day after, a hospital gets bombed and so on. I mean, don't you find it bizarre? I find it bizarre. So what I'm saying is, today, just to go against this so-called, I call it mainstream ideology, which is fed to us every day, through various platforms and so on, and the big media, the tech giants and so on. It's just impossible, which is bizarre because in theater you can do that. It's you know, cost-wise, it's not expensive to put up a theater show, and that's one of the reasons I never wanted to be subsidized by the state myself. And as a company, and right now, well, it's a long story. I changed the structure with which I do shows. But anyway, in the past, I did run a festival in the city of Alba for 3 years. It was the Alba Theater International Physical Theater Festival, and I actually did applications, some funding applications to run the festival. And I'm very grateful for the people who actually gave me money. So I did win some money and so on and so forth. But I just realized, doing that for 3 years, you gotta accommodate people. You have to, in a way, tell them what they want to hear. And I just didn't like that at all. It got to the point after I did that for 3 years that I got incredibly depressed about running the festival, and I said, I'm not gonna do that any longer. I mean, it became politics more than arts, and I just like my freedom. So that's why I think commercial theater is just very, very important. Okay, now commercial theater, don't get me wrong, is not, the huge, musicals of the West End in London, or Broadway and so on. Commercial theater is people paying for a ticket to see you perform in your show, and it's an exchange, and you gotta entertain people. When you do commercial theater, you cannot be patronizing people, stuff like that. But at the same time, you can decide on the content of the show you want to present. So I've always been interested in social themes. So my second silent comedy show was about the Lehman Brothers, the famous bank that went bankrupt in 2008, and the financial crisis. The first one, Freeze, was all set in the psychiatric ward of a hospital. I did one on cyberbullying, gambling addiction, and so on. I'm pretty famous for having done a show about Benito Mussolini, and if you go to my main YouTube channel, I play Benito Mussolini all the time, because I just like the character, from a theatrical and dramaturgical point of view, and also in Italy, where I live, we're just bombarded every day, every single day, on how the parties running the countries right now. There were ex-fascists and so on, and so that's very dangerous, stuff like that. And if you ask me, living in the country, nothing has changed at all. Nothing. It just it seems that politics nowadays is okay. I'm gonna do a better job than you do. That's it. The end of ideology. So, so I decided, okay, well, I'll go YouTube. So I'm gonna make fun of this character and create all these parodies of Benito Mussolini and so on. That's not something I could do on TV. But what I'm saying is, at least you're free to do that. But once you run at a state level, and you become subsidized by the state, then your freedom is gone. You gotta do what the state commands you to do, okay? And there are things you just can't touch. Let me give an example for France, okay? If you're French, you listen to this. The war in Algeria. I know everything about the war in Algeria, which is something which has been completely forgotten by France, okay? Now, France lives, right now, the political system is called La Cinquième République, the Fifth Republic. Now, that comes from the crisis created from the war in Algeria. To speak about Russia and Ukraine right now, France was at war with Algeria for almost, I forgot the dates right now. I think it was like almost 10 years, 1952, 1962, or something like that. And at one point, every citizen out of three in Algiers, the capital, was either put into prison, tortured. They used torture as well. There was this terrorist attack in Paris 10 years ago. I forgot the name of a club, in the music club, and they say, "Oh, that was the worst." No, that was the event in which most civilians died in Paris, and so on. And that's a lie. There was a previous event in the I think 1960 or something like that, when 200 Algerians, people protesting, with regard to the war of Algeria, were killed by the police, and 40 corpses were actually floating in the Seine, in the river. Now, could you write a theater piece about that? Impossible. And get French subsidy? It's just impossible. Do you understand what I'm saying? And for the record, at the time, that was called a special military operation for the maintaining of peace in Algeria, which kind of reminds you of the Russian special military operation, and then it actually was recognized as a war in 1997 or something like that. But it was like 27 years after it actually ended. Okay, I'll give another example, which comes from Italy. Now, Italy is famous for the opera, and one of the best opera singers is Giuseppe Verdi. Everybody knows about him. Okay. Now, I don't know if you know that, but Giuseppe Verdi never was not admitted to the conservatorium in Milan. He tried to pass the exam, but basically failed the exam, and the professors at the Conservatorium of Music of Milan told him he played the piano like a farmer. Now imagine how insulting is that. Because Verdi was self-taught at the beginning. And now, if that were today, that would be the end of Giuseppe Verdi's career. But what happened in Milan, there was a shrewd businessman, and I don't remember his name, I'm sorry about that. That's what we call an impresario in Italian. Somebody who was an entrepreneur in show business. And this guy just realized that this Verdi guy, he had talent. He was just very fast at writing operas. He also had a sad life, by the way, because his wife and kids died, and during the period of grievance, I think he wrote five operas. Okay, in 2 years, whatever it was. It's not like nowadays they didn't have DAOs at that time, digital audio workstations, computers, and so on and so forth. So it's quite a feat. But what I'm saying is, Giuseppe Verdi's career started because there was an entrepreneur on his side. There was, and he had the possibility, that freedom. Nowadays, I think theater is also dying in a way because what is offered to the audience is, it tends to be flat. It tends to be, especially as speaking about, in theater, like state-run theater, stuff like that. It basically is like, I'm sorry, it's a bad example maybe, but it's like Netflix. You just get the same kind of movies, okay? Nothing else. And it tends to be badly written as well because of that. And the majority of companies I know who are, you also enter in that kind of socialist mentality. I'm sorry to say that. Whereas your biggest preoccupation is not to develop new interesting work, but to win another funding application, which is completely different. Okay, so what you aim at, if you're running one of these companies, which get subsidy from the state, is how I'm going to win another funding application, and this is terrible. This is like real communism as far as I'm concerned. I don't, you just you basically throwing all your creativity into the bin. And these people, because I know some of them, they will justify that like, oh yeah, but they basically justify it themselves by being so-called leftists. Okay, oh, I'm a leftist, so I'm the state should support theater and so on and so forth. Of course, it supports them. Okay, if it's other people, end of the story. And so that's one of the effects of having state-run theater. And the second effect is you because of what I said, you basically lack the ambition to go abroad, like I do, for example, okay, to visit other countries, to see whether your story is truly universal, can be pitched to other countries, and so forth. So, and that's why you just had 13 companies, French companies, doing the Edinburgh Fringe, and maybe 6 companies doing the Avignon Off Fringe, because all these people live in their own Italian slash French word, and they don't have the ambition to actually, go beyond, and so on and so forth. So, just very rarely I see somebody with that kind of ambition. Having said that, I do, you could say I do social comedy or something like that. I don't want to label it, but that's why I kind of find myself, that's why I have good relationships with clowns in general, because a clown, somebody doing silent comedy or anyway clowning, it's universal per se, and it doesn't matter, in which country you're based. You're just bound to perform outside your countries, and it's just very difficult. The clowning, it's supported by the states. I mean, it may happen, but just very, very difficult. I think politicians, by and large, what they want to capitalize on whatever they do in order to get the greatest amount of votes that is possible. So if you present, suppose, Europe. It's a great example. The European Union. Now, the European Union right now is passing through the worst period of crisis since its existence. And bear in mind, it's been going on for, is that 16, 17 years now? Not even 20, okay? And it showed itself to be an incredible, bureaucratic, totalitarian institution. I'm not afraid to say that at all. Just look at the way they're handling the crisis in Ukraine. Just like, I mean, they're the vassals of the United States of America, basically. They don't care about European interests at all. And so the forces that want to destroy the European Union from within are just very, very strong. Now, if if you do a funding application through the EU, now the EU promotes the arts as well, and you have a show which kind of shows how beautiful the European Union is, how the world would be better if we were all united, if we all nations lost their sovereignty to the European Union and so on, and if we bought the gender propaganda and so on and so forth, that would get a funding application immediately. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's all a joke, and people know that, and that's why they don't go to the theater any longer. Okay, they just know that they're not stupid. Okay, yes, you have shows that the kind of super performance, quick exchange artists, acrobats, circus. But if you're speaking about stories, like dramaturgy, and theater is based on literature, like it or not, I don't see anything out there at all. I just don't see anything at all, like I said. So it's a sad period. Bear in mind, maybe in the past was the same as well, in some twisted ways. Shakespeare never spoke about religion because at the times, Elizabethan England, the conflict between Protestant and Catholics was like at its peak. So, sometimes there's stuff you just can't speak about. But it seems to me that the big brother that is kind of controlling us is leveling us down to a level of conformity. Do you understand what I'm saying? Conformity. And you can see that also in the young generations, like teenagers. I mean, I think this is the first generation where people they don't want to rebel, but they rather want to conform. They want to have, the million views on YouTube, the thousands likes and so on and so forth. What can I say? It is reality. I'm on YouTube as well. I'm doing this as well. Okay, you cannot fight reality, but still, I think you can be, you can have a level of integrity and be honest, and just talk about what you want to do. I think freedom of speech in a way is very important. Okay, the fact that you have somebody, even somebody who actually disagrees with you. Okay, doesn't matter, but the fact that you're free to think in different ways and so on. That's, this variety. That's what makes art beautiful in a way, and also that's what makes the word progress, because every big change came from people who had the old word against them. Okay, that's because people, by and large, they like security and safety. Okay, and somebody comes and proposes something utterly new, chances are they'll be expelled from the community. Look at Socrates. What happened to him? Ancient Greece. Christopher Columbus. I mean, you name it. Pasteur, the inventor of the vaccines, or one of the vaccines. Sorry, I think the actual inventor was British. It doesn't matter. But Louis Pasteur, anyway, a French doctor and so on. Or in politics, the French Revolution, the American Revolutions. I mean, the first guys that actually studied this, they had the old word against them because they were fighting the establishment, an established institution. And it's the same with theater or the arts and so on. I don't know what's going to happen to music, for example. Like I said in a previous video, I told you I use AI, and it's kind of scary, So as you lean towards automation, of course, you leave something behind as far as creativity is concerned, and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, this is a rant, but it's a rant I wanted to have, and probably don't care. I don't think anybody's watching this, but yeah, I think it's important to, for the people that do theater professionally, just to remember why they do it, and it's not because of the money, really. Okay, it's about living life to the full. Like I said, making it wider. Having said that, guys, enjoy the day. I got a lot of work to do today, a lot of work, and I'm gonna do it at home. It's a scorching hot day, and I'm gonna stay outside and recovering from slight flu I had, and really had to work a lot. So I guess I'm gonna see you later, and take care. Enjoy life.